She doesn't really. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, she remembers mine, right?
Not commutable, I don't know. Hi everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm Catherine. I'm the events director at Watchung Booksellers. We're so happy to have you. We're so happy to welcome Megan Cummins with us tonight and conversation with Alice Elliott Dark. And I'm going to read their bios really quickly and then let them get to a wonderful conversation. Megan Cummins is the author of If the Body Allows It, awarded the Prairie Schooner Book Prize in Fiction, and long-listed for the Story Prize and the Penn Robert W. Bingham Prize for debut short story collection. Her stories and essays have appeared in A Public Space, Guernica, One Teen Story, Ninth Letter, Electric Literature, and elsewhere. She edits at Public Books, a magazine of arts, ideas, and scholarship. Atomic Hearts is her debut novel. And with her tonight is our friend Alice Elliott Dark, who is the author of the novels Fellowship Point and Think of England, and two collections of short stories, In the Gloaming and Naked to the Waist. In the Gloaming, a story was chosen by John Updike for inclusion in the Best American Short Stories of the Century, and was made into films by HBO and Trinity Playhouse. She is a professor at Rutgers Newark in the English department and the director of the MFA in Creative Writing program. So enjoy the talk.
Thank you so much, Catherine and Mari. Megan, this is so exciting.
Thank you.
And we have good representation from Rutgers Newark
So
MFA this
many
evening.
Rutgers Newark.
I feel like we're back at McGovern.
It's so nice to see everybody. So congratulations so much on this novel. It's really wonderful. How many people have read it? Okay. Marnie requested no spoilers.
We just bought it, so no spoilers.
So we'll try not to go too deeply into the book, but sort of talk about it in general and talk about your writing and all of those things in general. So why don't you start by telling us what Atomic Hearts is about?
So, Atomic Hearts, and I won't spoil, it is, in broad terms, a story about imagination and forgiveness and how you can use the first to find the second. The novel follows Gertie, who at 2 points in her life, one when she's 16 and the other when she's in her 30s. And when she's 16, her family's falling apart, her father is struggling with addiction, and she goes to live with him in South Dakota for a summer. And so the book really kind of revolves around this one summer when she's 16. Her father's using again, and instead of telling her mother or telling a friend or telling anyone, really, she decides, you know, if I leave, he has no one, and maybe I can be the one to help him. And she is also writing a fantasy novel, so she uses it as this sort of form of escapism to imagine a life that is very much not hers, although as the book goes on, we sort of come to see the novel that she's writing, that you get little glimpses of in the book, start to reflect, you know, her lived experience. And then the interspersed in there are chapters when she's an adult, where she's reflecting on the summer. She's still trying to write. She's trying to write about, you know, and then just as when she was a kid, she, as an adult, is trying to write about what happened to make sense of it.
It seems, what you just said, it seems so typical of teenagers that they won't tell when something really bad is going on in their life and think they should be responsible, they should solve this problem for themselves. Did you do research talking, or was this from remembering what it's like to be a teenager?
It was mostly a memory of being a teenager. I love novels for adults written from the perspective of teenagers. I think there's something about, I wouldn't even call it like YA crossover space. I think it really is just adult fiction from the point of view of teenagers that there's something like aspirational about their emotions at that stage, and like I think a lot of books with teenage narrators, like I think you could sometimes have this immediate reaction of like, oh, that seems too sophisticated for like a 16-year-old to maybe have that thought or to like take that on herself. But I actually think, it's this way that teenagers try to seek that control is actually like beyond their years. And I think the inner lives are they're really reaching out, trying to, reaching toward adulthood. And Gertie really, the way she reacts to her parents who are very caught up in their own problems, it's like, well, I guess I'm an adult now. Like, I guess I am on my own. I guess,
She is kind of left to be a little adult.
Right.
Because no one's taking care of her.
Yeah. So I think it's this sense of like, she like feels that it's just, since she's like been left on her own, she might as well deal with it on her own.
Yeah.
And, you come to maybe see that isn't necessarily the best decision, but it's the one she sort of, the family situation has led her to make.
Yeah. I totally take your point about people underestimating teenagers and children.
Yeah.
I think so many children are extremely articulate by the time they're 4 or 5.
Mhm.
Can just talk like grown-ups.
Yeah.
But if you write that, everyone says, oh, they don't talk that way, but they do.
Yeah. Yeah, they really do.
For those of us who've had children and remember their early talk, they sound like they know what they're talking about. They don't always know what they're talking about, but they know how to talk.
Yeah.
But this is even more. It's like someone who actually knows how to, to think through problems, to rationalize the problems in good and bad ways.
Right.
To take on this huge amount of responsibility, but I think so many kids do that. And I do think of it as something that's interesting to adults because it is like so on the cusp.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you're right. I think the categories are a little strange.
Yeah.
For
It's
when
right.
YA ends and when adult begins.
It's like, and you realize that that's just kind of like a marketing category,
Yeah,
but
it's a marketing
there are
category.
books that fall between them, and they're some of my like favorite books, I think.
Were you asked to add the adult layer of the book for this reason? Or was that something that you came with organically?
It was something I'd been thinking of. So I had written the book first as, I thought I was writing a YA novel, and I realized pretty quickly that I don't know, I didn't realize quickly, but along the way I came to feel that it was dealing with adult themes and had an adult sensibility to the writing. And I did feel like it fell in this in-between space. And so I was revising the book and I was talking to my agent, and she was like, why don't you write a frame for it? Like, take the summer, write the adult frame, which is something we had sort of talked about, and then in the fall we'll send it out without the frame to YA editors, and we'll send it out with the frame to adult editors.
Wow.
And
Did you do that?
we did, yeah.
Wow.
And the response we got from YA editors was realism is tough in YA. But we did get a response from the adult side. So, and also I think by that point, after writing the adult frame, I had been working on this book for so long that I'm so glad it worked out the way it did, because I think it makes the book what it is, having the adult frame. I think it's a little, honestly, even though without the adult frame it was supposed to be a YA novel, I felt it was a bit oppressive. It just like not having any sense of like Gertie being okay in the future, of like proof of a life, like I felt it really needed that. But like by that summer I'd been working on it for so long, I had like a bad experience with a previous agent, and I just like I was like, whoever wants it, you know, like, you can have it, you know, like, I'll do anything. So luckily, I was prevented from having to like just like make a decision about the book purely off of like who wanted to publish it, and I think the right book came out of it.
I think the adult frame is beautiful, and so many things happen in that part of the story, and we get to see, after having such devastating experiences as a teenager with boys, I hope this isn't giving away, but a very positive adult experience, which I found so satisfying, and I was so happy for her that happened. Since I just mentioned that, I was really shocked by some of the things that happened to her. I hope the world wasn't still like that, but I guess it is. Like some of the ways that she was treated by boys and her friends, but especially the boys. I mean, it was so careless and so it was really careless. It was like she wasn't even a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it definitely, as I was writing the teenage parts of the book, I thought a lot about that because I worried that, because she does go through a lot of bad experiences with boys when she's 16, and part of me worried that it would feel too much, like it would feel like people would, I worried that maybe I was doing that part of the book a disservice by having more than one bad experience with a boy, because I worried that people would think like, well, that's not, like, she would have learned, you know, or that's not realistic. But like, I realized that it's like, you know what, no, that's like, it's not, these things do happen, they're not her fault.
Yeah.
And it didn't feel like the right decision to like pare back on them just because I worried about how they might be received by a reader who might be like skeptical, you know, who is probably not even going to be the type of person who's going to read this book, you know. So but yeah, she does go through a lot with boys, and
it was hard. I thought that all ended. It was like that when I was young, but I thought that all stopped. I guess not.
Yeah, I don't know. Hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, I just thought of something when you were saying that. Oh, so how, you know, you just mentioned like thinking about how readers would take certain things, but is that something you think about when you're writing, or does that come later in the editing stage, like, oh, I have these things happen, maybe I should pare back, or when do you start thinking about readers?
It was definitely later during the editor stage. I think when I'm first starting out writing something, I have this anxiety of thinking about the reader, and that's when I'm like at the very beginning, because it's like when I write like the first bad paragraph, you know, of the first draft, I'm like, oh my god, everyone's gonna hate this, no one's gonna want to read this, like my career's over. Or I was like, I've written all that I can write, apparently, you know. And so that's what I'm thinking about the reader. But it's one of those, it's like that moment where you just have to push through and be okay with the bad draft. And once I get into even just a couple pages in, like, of a first draft, I feel like I have like gotten into not necessarily like flow, because I don't really often get into like, I don't know what you might think of as like flow state, but I just start thinking maybe like 4 or 5 steps ahead. So it's like I will be working on something, and then I'll be like, okay, like this will happen, then this, and then this, and I have like a little map, and then I just follow that and keep adding new bricks in the road.
What does your little map look like?
It is notes in a notebook, and sometimes typed at the bottom of a Word doc, but mostly it's very messy. It's like I will write like bullet points in my notebook, but then I will like sometimes just write scenes in my notebook, and then I'll go back to like more bullet points, and so I'm constantly trying to like flip through the pages to like, I remember writing something down that was interesting, I have to like go back and find it. but I kind of like that exploration, you know, 'cause I like being reminded of what I forgot because I wrote it down by hand. I did this summer like type up all of the notes of like the thing I was working on, and I like told a friend of mine who I usually meet with on Zoom on Fridays to write with, and I was like, oh yeah, I was just like typing up my notes, and I've never done that before. I was like, I'm gonna be able to like search through them, and he was like, oh yeah, like I do that all the time. That's great. Like, how often do you do it? And I was like, this is my first time. So it's a mix. The map. It's mostly just things written down.
I wanted to ask you about the title and the cover. Where did you come up with the title, and how do you feel? Okay, this is what I want to ask you. At what point did you come up with the title, and did it shape your thinking? Was it thematically useful for you to have that title, or did it come at a later stage when you'd already written? Or
it came very, very late. The book for a long time was called Aerosol, which was the title of a short story that was published in One Teen Story that is in different form as seen in this book. And so it was called Aerosol. It was called Aerosol when it went out in submission. All through revisions, it still had that title.
Wow.
And finally, when it was time to like finalize the title, I had been warned too that they might want to change the title, my publisher. So they didn't, for SEO reasons, they didn't like a one-word title that was also a product. So Aerosol was off the table.
Wow.
And
That's interesting.
I came up with a long list of titles with a lot of bad ones. My editor came up with a long list of titles. He also put the book through Random House's internal ChatGPT, which they built to stop editors from putting manuscripts into real ChatGPT. And
How does that work? That's a whole other
or maybe not that they were necessarily, but that to remove any temptation. And he asked for title suggestions, and their AI came up with Summer of the Opioid Moon as my title. As my editor said, he was like, I think our jobs are safe for a little while. I think it was around the time like Summer of the Flower Moon came out.
That's hilarious.
So anyway, Atomic Hearts was one of his suggestions, and I can't remember I'm trying to remember what my title suggestions were. So anyway, we asked around. I asked friends. I asked my friend Sarah. I asked, he asked his colleagues, and we liked Atomic Hearts because sort of subconsciously in the writing, I feel like there were moments in the writing where, at least in like an imagistic sense, I was like writing toward like the things, like the most minuscule things that like make up who we are on like a molecular level.
That's good.
But it was something applied after the fact that we saw, like, I saw like a way for it to like.
Did you think up that title?
No, that was one of my editor's suggestions. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a hard time at first with changing the title. So
It's hard when you thought of it
yeah,
the whole time.
right, the whole time for like 10 years almost, at that point. So yeah.
Yeah. The scene that was the story, the One Teen Story situation with the aerosol can blowing up and hurting her. That seemed like such a rich metaphor, and I was wondering if having a metaphor like that was something exploding unexpectedly, whether that gave shape to the book, because it seemed like that happens over and over and over in the book, and it just was such a rich metaphor to have as a central. I would have loved if the title were aerosol, because I really think it
Yeah.
works. It works that way.
Yeah.
But this does too. I mean, Atomic has the same effect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, and with the title change, we were sort of going for that as well, you know,
Yeah.
the kind of explosiveness. Yeah, absolutely. I think that was really like a driving metaphor for me. When I wrote the story and published the short story, I was trying to write a different novel that didn't pan out, and I was just trying to think of like what, you know, had I either already written or started writing that maybe had enough heft, you know, to turn into, to become a novel. And I realized like that scene kind of, that story like ends almost with, you know, with this explosion and with this kind of rapid decline that this character has because she ignores the wound. And I realized that like the end of that story was really like the start of the novel. I mean, that scene comes pretty early in the novel, and I knew that there was a lot that would happen that summer. And the fact that it was at the start of summer too felt like, you know, perfect as like the launching point for a summer that goes badly.
Yeah, and it was a good beginning too, because as we were talking earlier about how she tries to figure out how to take care of her father and make things better, in this instance where we first see her, she's thinking the opposite.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm going to ignore, you know, the fact that I have a high fever and it's obviously infected, and so it sets her off on a good arc.
Yeah.
It's really a good idea to begin that way.
Thank you.
That wasn't a question.
I mean, I wanted to, both in the, you know, teen narrative and the adult narrative, like show her growth in learning how to ask for help and learning how to recognize, you know, when a situation is beyond her control. Because I think even her ignoring of the wound is a little bit about control. You know, she has no control over her parents' decisions or the life, you know, of theirs that she is a part of. So with that, and even in a way of like, you know, being drawn to kind of bad, you know, people who aren't good for her. It's like, even if she recognizes in some ways that these situations aren't good, but she almost feels like she's making the decision anyway to do it, you know, even if she knows it's bad.
Right. Yeah, I like that about her.
Yeah.
She's, you know, she's a little bit rebellious, not too much, but she's dealing with something so difficult we haven't really talked about yet. Her father's really a drug addict. I mean, you mentioned it, but that's a huge problem. And her best friend's father is also a drug addict. And this is like a very central aspect of their friendship. And I'm going to ask this, but if you feel like it's going to go too far into spoilers, don't answer. But did you feel like the effect of having a parent who was a drug addict for both of them, that it made it so difficult for their friendship to go the way it should because of, you know, they were so distorted by
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, they become almost best friends by default when they're young because their dads grew up together. Their dads have both struggled with addiction and have gone through recovery and relapse together. And so they, as, you know, because their fathers have spent a lot of time together when they are growing up, they become friends. And when we meet them when they're 16, they, I think they're at just the beginning of like deciding how they're going to become their own people, and you know, whether or not they can adapt this friendship to fit their adult lives is one of the big questions of the book. Because it is, I mean, I think they have this really, really close bond, but it is built from this like trauma in a way, and this you know, right, the secret, and like feeling in the small town that they live in the time that they're living in, it's not easy to talk about that, like addiction when there's addiction in your family, and so they have each other that they can be open and honest with, But they've built their friendship on that, and it's it becomes difficult because there's no escaping, you know, the parts of their lives that are the hardest, even when they're together. But yeah, like how they might navigate that is a big question.
It almost seems also like it's kind of a shorthand, like they could just say to each other, he's using again, and the other one knows what that means, but it's not nearly enough of a conversation.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
and that sort of gets them into trouble, that they can give the headline, but they don't know how to tell
Right, yeah.
tell the whole story and really get to what matters.
Right, because they've also seen their fathers, you know, go through recovery and relapse, and it, like, the methods that they are aware of, like, haven't worked, you know, and so they're kind of powerless to, like, suggest, you know, what could work. And also both of their mothers at this point have, like, thrown their hands up. And so there's no, you know, they feel pretty alone in that.
Do you wanna read a little bit? We'd
totally.
love to hear your
Sure, maybe I'll
Your
read
prose.
it, for
Your
just,
beautiful
I
prose.
won't read for too long, don't worry. Maybe just, I will read, from when the aerosol can explodes. Okay, so she and Cindy have built a bonfire, and they're alone, like Gertie's mom's out of town. They built a bonfire, and they are just chatting, you know, as teen girls do. And Cindy, the point at which I'm going to start is that Cindy has revealed something about the summer that sort of a mandate from her mom. So, and through this scene, Gertie is also kind of reflecting about her fantasy novel too. So, it's been an awful week, Cindy said. My mom said this terrible thing too. She said I should try to meet new people this summer. She wants you to break up with Gabe, I asked. Cindy shrugged. I mean, always, but that's not really it. She started on this crazy idea that you're a bad influence. It was crushing to hear someone say the worst you've thought about yourself. She's projecting because she's mad at my dad and your dad, and she hates Gabe. I told her I couldn't abandon you, and she was like, you know, that's tough, but we have our own problems. She's being so cold. I keep telling her you're the only person I can trust, but she keeps saying if it's true, then there's a problem. Cindy, I said, I have to tell you something. I felt the pain piercing my thigh before I heard the pop of exploding metal and a loud hiss. I didn't scream, but all the air rushed out of me. I could almost see it, the way you could see air get sucked from astronauts' mouths in movies when they go out into space without their suits. A rusty aerosol can tucked into one of the cinder blocks. I hadn't noticed it before, but the heat from the fire had made it explode. I froze as I looked down at my thigh, at the shard of metal as wide as my big toe embedded 2 inches deep beneath my skin. I didn't breathe, not until I couldn't stand it any longer. What I'd been about to confess popped apart over the fire. Cindy's hand covered her mouth. Her drink was overturned next to her, juice and vodka crawling toward the grass. I stared at the shard of metal for a second, completely bewildered, and I reached for it, but my hand hesitated and all my strength disappeared. Cindy, panic rose in my chest. Pull it out, please, get it out. Cindy grabbed the shrapnel and yanked it out quickly with the sickening sound of metal tearing from flesh. Everything was still, even the flames froze, and then the blood flowed out and I rushed at the wound with everything I could find. My math homework from my back pocket, leaves from the ground, my t-shirt pulled down over my shorts. It's okay, Cindy grasped my shoulders, but her voice didn't sound convinced. It's okay, you're okay. Wasn't there an important vein in your thigh? I'd never seen so much blood in real life. It seeped through my fingers and ran down my wrists. I pushed myself up to my feet and almost fell into the fire. Droplets of blood went flying and were devoured with a sizzle. I need to go inside, I said weakly. We left a trail of blood that dotted the grass like dewdrops. The fan sputtered on in the bathroom. One of the light bulbs flickered, and I propped my leg on the counter. My knee knocked the clamshell soap dish to the floor where it broke, and I lifted my hand in math homework and looked at the cut. It was a gouge, really, my skin completely open in a bloody trench. I pressed the flesh back together, but the pain hit me hard, and I leaned over and threw up on the floor next to Cindy's feet. Jesus, she said. Okay, I'm calling my mom. I could see it. Anne-Marie pulling up and surveying the bathroom, the vomit, spilled vodka in the kitchen, and the cutting board scattered with lime wedges. Seeing our bloody house with the for sale sign in the front yard because my mom didn't have a job, because her business hadn't survived, and she never landed anywhere else. Anne-Marie horrified, not out of concern for me, but out of concern that her daughter was with me. One more strike against me in a tally I'd always had a feeling she'd been keeping. Wait, I pressed my hand to Cindy's arm to stop her from making the call. She lowered her phone. I left a scarlet streak on her clean white sweater. In my memory, she looks like the actress in a horror film that isn't very feminist. It's not that bad. Just give me a minute. I tore through the cabinets, leaving bloody handprints on everything, and I found small Band-Aids and hydrogen peroxide. I couldn't wedge my thigh under the faucet, so I told Cindy to wait while I rinsed off upstairs. Each step turned our realtor-ready house into a crime scene. I stood under the cold water without even taking off my clothes. I was flushed and feverish before the shower, and then I was shaking with cold after. Hydrogen peroxide dribbled over my cut, and I watched it fizz. I bit my lip against the stinging. The blood slowed a little, but still flowed freely, a small rivulet draining from the wound. I folded a few paper towels and wrapped my leg with a long tear of duct tape I found in my mom's desk. I needed stitches. I needed wound evaluation. Maybe Cindy should call her mom. But aside from the fact that Anne-Marie thought I was a screw-up, our insurance had been my dad's, and we'd lost it when he'd gotten fired from his job last summer. An ER bill would cost at least $1,000. I didn't know how much my mom had in the bank. I had $500 saved from birthdays and babysitting gigs. More than anything, I didn't want to have to ask Vaughn to pay. He would demand a repayment plan. He'd take credit for saving my life. I'd have to work off my debt, emptying rat traps on his boat and scrubbing barnacles off the hull. Downstairs, Cindy was sitting on the couch with her phone pressed to her ear. Okay, she said. Bye. As soon as she hung up, she said, my mom called me. I didn't tell her anything, but she wants me to come home now. She paused. Are you sure you don't want me to take you to the hospital? I'm fine, I said. I'm so totally fine. It's not even bleeding anymore. It wasn't that deep as it seemed at first. The morning, I thought, I would see how it was in the morning. I felt very tired and very woozy, and so after Cindy left, I limped to my bedroom and wrapped myself up in a burrito with my blankets to hide from the pain. 2 questions I had about my fantasy novel. Why does the character get transported from her home in the first place, and does she ever come back? These questions were more important than whether or not she falls in love with the brooding Archer boy. Also, let's face it, she definitely falls in love with the brooding Archer boy. Who could resist? There could be a section where the girl gets wounded because she'll take naturally to a bow and arrow and join the army against the evil lord or dictator or whoever it is they're trying to defeat. She might get separated from her company, stumble into a forest, delirious, with beasts roaming among the trees and their yellow eyes gleaming hungrily. But she'll mix a salve, she'll use her wits, because girls in fantasy novels always have hidden talents. They're always able to fend for themselves from the start. They make the right choices quickly, and they do it all themselves.
So good. Such first-rate writing, really.
Thank you. Oh.
Well, that's true. But I knew that about you a long time ago. I'm going to ask one more question and then open it up so other people can ask you. So Gertie's writing 2 books in the book. We mentioned that earlier. She's writing this fantasy novel. And as you said, it's a place that she can escape to. And we also see that it's not a mirror of what's going on in her life or a parallel, but it is a way that she can think. It's almost like she's teaching herself to think by thinking through what's going to happen to her heroine. I really like that. I like that it wasn't a direct parallel, but that it was something very useful for her. And it's sort of true in the second novel she's writing, which I won't say what it is because that's something that comes out in the story. But it's very clear in both cases that neither of these novels that she's like a real writer, she's an artist. Neither of these books is being written therapeutically or for any reason other than she's actually trying to make something. She's trying to make something new.
Yeah.
And I really love that, and I just want to read a line that I love so much. And now, after years of fighting who I was then, who they were, who my dad was, I'm ready to make something beautiful. And I would love for you to talk about how you think about the difference between writing for reasons like therapy, or writing for revenge, or writing for all kinds of things, and writing to make something beautiful. Because it's a stunning line, and you really see that it's true of her.
Thank you so much. That's so kind. Yeah, I mean, I often, when I write, there are often things that I draw from, real life, but I don't actually consider what I write to be autofiction. I actually don't even quite know. I don't really know what autofiction means. I think it means something a little different for everybody. And so I, even if I do draw from real life sometimes, I have really no interest in only mirroring real life in writing. I think, and I think it's not to say that's bad if that's what, you want what someone wants to write, but what I'm more interested in is how things that really did happen can be twisted into a satisfying shape for a reader. I mean, I think a lot of, and this is something Gertie thinks a lot about as a writer in the book, is how unsatisfying real life can be, and the satisfaction for me and also for Gertie of reading something that comes together at the end into something bigger. And there's a million different ways you can do that with a book. I think there's no better feeling for me than that kind of that gasp moment when you get to a point in the book where you realize this, it wasn't just a talented writer writing something writing down a story that was beautifully told and that was an interesting story, but to get to that moment in a book where you realize you've been really guided there the whole time. That's such a satisfying moment for me. And I think as a writer, I often I try not to think about that too much when I'm drafting, because I'm the bigger picture becomes clearer later for me. I'm not I don't have a twist or the kind of gestalt or whatever. Yeah, the big reveal. I don't necessarily really always have that in mind. But I think part of being a writer for me is being comfortable with not knowing. But then once you spend so much time with the characters and with the scenario, they kind of tell you, where it is they're going. And so yeah, I guess that didn't really answer your question, but I mean, I do think, for me, the invention is the fun part and the most important part. And so I don't I find writing satisfying. I don't find it necessarily therapeutic, because I think I think there's just too much going on in the world and in my life for it to be therapeutic. I write one day a week, and that's and I have to squeeze it in. It's it's actually kind of stressful.
That seems totally unfair. I really feel you need a patron.
Right? Oh yeah. Well, maybe one day.
There's so much wisdom in this book. How did you become such a wise person?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know that. Well, it's that's very nice. It seems like I'm wise. I often feel very foolish sometimes. I make foolish decisions.
I'm sure you do, but you can't
yeah.
write with this much wisdom
Yeah.
without having wisdom. You can't make it up.
I spend a lot of time in my head. definitely like get lost in thought a lot. So I spend a lot of time thinking. Yeah. So maybe that's how. Just being alone with my thoughts.
I know that's a really hard question.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say that there's so much wisdom in this book. It's very gratifying on that level too. I felt like there were so many little moments where I felt like uplifted even in the darkest parts of the book, because the way Gertie conceives of things and responds to situations is with wisdom. Even if she doesn't know what she's doing, you know, she's just got an old soul, and it's so satisfying to read about someone like that.
Yeah, I think Gertie, and also myself, like I like listening to people talk. I like paying attention. I think I'm not as quiet as I used to be. I'm kind of a talker now, but I was really quiet as a kid, and I just like paid attention. You know, I just like was always watching like the adults and like other kids, and just like I was like very shy and quiet, and I just spent a lot of time like taking in everything around me.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a writer.
Yeah.
Questions, everybody?
Question about the frame, hi guys. So great to hear you both together. You mentioned the proof of life in the frame. I love that, and you mentioned how satisfying it was to see her in her happiness and stability, without saying too much. At what point in the writing did you know that that was the version of life she was going to have in the frame?
Oh, it was later. So I wrote the frame, like I mentioned, I revised it over like a summer. I wrote the frame, and it's like I sort of conceived of the basic like kind of outline of it, but it was a pretty light touch in the version that was like sent out on submission. And so my editor's big critique early on was he wanted the frame to be fleshed out and to have real stakes, you know, and to have its own stakes. And so it was very lucky timing that I got those notes a couple weeks before I left for a month at a residency in Scotland. And so I had never been to a residency before. It was my first and only time, and I was there. It was at Hawthornden, which is this castle run by the Drew Hines Foundation of Drew Hines of Heinz Ketchup, there was no, at the time there was no Wi-Fi in the castle. They have since added Wi-Fi, but I was there, and like all the writers were on the third floor of like you know, this castle from the 1400s that had been added to, and you know, I think like we were in like the 20th century edition, like early 20th century edition, but I was just like, it was just a whole month. I think I wrote every day, and I think there was one day that I took off to like go to the church where they had filmed part of the oh god, it was big in the Da Vinci Code. It was like a big part of the Da Vinci Code, so I went to that church just because it was like what people did. Like the administrator of the castle was like, well, everybody goes to the Da Vinci Code church. It's just we'll have an outing, you know. That's what we did. But yeah, I had never had that concentrated of a period to write, and I went there like not knowing what I would do with it, but like I was able, amazingly, to like be really, really productive. And so I wrote in like that 1 month. Most of what I was doing there during that time was like really fleshing out that frame. So yeah, it was pretty late in the game. Yeah, I got lucky with timing.
The best.
How did
Anyone
you
who hasn't read it, the epilogue, you just went.
decide to intercut the adult story with the teenage story instead of have it be part one, part two?
Oh, you know, from the beginning, I knew I wanted it, like, cause it crossed my mind of like maybe I should do part one, part two. But no, I just wanted, I liked the idea of like giving the information bit by bit. Like there are some things like where you get a little bit of a spoiler. Like you're reading the book, but you kind of get a glimpse at something in the future that like you don't know has happened yet, you know, and that like the book gives you that along the way. So I like that. I like being able to like give the information of the future like bit by bit, and try to have it like the past and the future like play off of each other in that way.
Other questions? Dag?
I have a comment and a little. I just started,
So I'm this much in, so I commend you for not really spoiling
Okay, so be
it.
very careful.
But you guys started to talk about YA or adult or teenagers, and I am this much in, and I'm already in love with your writing and with the characters. And I think a big part of why she's so wise and why I buy her fully is what resonates is when you're a child who loves an adult who's an addict, you have to mine so much more deeply and find out why, because you love them and you need to stick by them because you're their child. So by default, that I think plays a huge role in how soulful and how wise. So there's that part, and then there's the part that wants to forget all about it.
Yeah.
So you've captured that
Thank you so much.
wonderfully. But my question is, so when Marnie, who said you have to come on Thursday and read this, now it's like 3 for 3 that you've recommended. But I opened it and so I kind of knew it was, but this quote killed me.
Yes.
And in these, I just was like, I know what this book will be
Can you
in
read
a
it?
wonderful way.
Can you read it?
And I don't know, is it from a poem or is this?
Yeah,
So
it's from-
her quote here is, this time I was beside you. I waited and I saved you. I was there. And it just was like, oh, this novel's gonna. So, is this you?
No,
Or-
so that,
No, I mean, did you want this particular quote, or did like someone help you find it, or?
Yeah, no, so that's a quote. It's from
It's
a
so
poet
gorgeous.
named Laura Kaczynski, who I was talking about earlier. From one of her poems called "For the Young Woman I Saw Hit by a Car While Riding Her Bike." And it's this poem about this woman who witnesses a young woman get hit by a car, but she's totally fine.
Right.
But the speaker of the poem has this visceral reaction.
Right.
And I have loved that poem for years and years. I read it for the first time long before I started writing this book. And I originally didn't have an epigraph, but then those lines just popped in my head.
So
And I actually didn't have the line quite right. I was like remembering, I know there's a poem of hers that ends with, I was there, I saved you, or something. And so I actually wrote Laura, because she was a professor of mine in undergrad. And I was like, I remember you, I heard you at a reading, read this poem, and I know I have your book with it, but like, which book is it from? And she told me and wrote back, she wrote back and told me, but it just fit, it's like, it popped into my head, and I was like, that has to be the epigraph. It fits
It's so
the
good.
book perfectly. Oh,
It's so
thank you.
good.
Yeah, I love
It's
that
just
poem
such
so
a
much.
beautiful, like, opening of the door
Oh,
to the
thank
novel.
you. It's a gorgeous poem. It's from her collection.
It almost, I almost felt when I read it like, that's probably like the whole poem. Like, it's just so perfect when I read the time. But I guess it's a longer
It's a couple
poem.
of pages long. The pages,
Yeah.
a couple
Anyway,
pages
so
long.
I'm
Yeah.
very excited
Thank
to
you.
finish. Congrats.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you find did anything particularly inspire you while you're writing, or give you more juice and energy? Because it's a slog, I would
Yeah.
imagine, sometimes, no matter
Totally.
what the book is. Did you find things giving you
Yeah,
power?
like giving power. Yeah, that's such a good question. I mean, certainly, like I feel very lucky to like live in New York and to be surrounded by so many incredible writers, and obviously amazing writers live all over the world, not just New York. I try not to be like a very New York centric, like it's the center of the world flip person, but just the fact that like so many writers come to New York even if they don't live here. Like there's so many readings you can go to, and just opportunities for that. Like I probably could have taken advantage of it even more, but like that is always inspiring. I mean, I also think just on like a very personal level, like like I have a full-time job, so it can be hard to like find like the time to write. But there was like every year for the most part, I would take a week-long vacation in the summer and go up to northern Michigan, and I would print out the book and put it in a binder. Wherever I was with it, I would like put the draft in the binder, and I would like take it to the beach and just like lie on the towel in the sand, and like I would be reading and like, you know, I'd be making notes and like doing handwriting revisions in the notebook, and so like everybody else was just having fun at the beach, and I came laden with like a big binder, and my notebooks, and had the best time. Sarah was there for some of it, so yeah.
I saw with my eyes.
Yeah. So that brought me great joy because I felt like I did do really great writing on the beach, and I should go to the beach more often.
Can I ask a follow-up question? That's amazing. That sounds fun to me. The second question is kind of related because I know you edit. I know part of your daily work is reading other people's writing.
Yeah.
Care to comment at all?
Yeah.
How does that?
Oh,
or not?
man.
You can decline to comment.
No.
How does that fit
Yeah.
into your process?
It's a good question. So I at my last job, I worked for a literary magazine called The Public Space and a books publisher. You know, I was the managing editor there, and I'm also the managing editor now at Public Books, which, so like that role, like for the most part, that's more of like an administrative like job and like, you know, managing the production calendar and less developmental editing. But I did much more developmental editing at a Public Space, of pieces for the magazine, and then also I was the lead editor for a story collection we published by a writer named Arinze Fakandu that came out in 2022, and that was probably my biggest, like most in-depth like editing experience, and I loved it. I mean, I loved that book so much. I had a really great time editing those stories and like just getting to know the work so intimately, and to like trying to like figure out with the writer like what Arinze was, you know, like how to make the stories the best version they could be, and like trying to inhabit them in a way where I sort of could say what I thought he was doing, not what I would do. And it's a very different like headspace for me, but I like that. I was probably 6 months of developmental editing for that book with Arinze, and it was like all my nights and weekends, and I didn't write at all my own work. So I just, at least like I felt I had a great experience doing it. I don't think I can edit fiction and write. You know, I tried it and I just don't think I can do both, at least not book length. And so now at Public Books, I actually, occasionally I will edit like some interviews we do or like an essay, but for the most part, you know, we don't publish fiction there. It's all nonfiction and interviews, so it's, for the most part, I'm more, I'm in my kind of like administrative, managing editor lane, and it's more, as much as I love editing, like the creative part of it, I think, I don't think I can do both. Unless like I had a job where I was where I could do it during the day. But like I think most editorial jobs, it's like your nights and weekends. So, yeah.
If you won the lottery, would you quit tomorrow?
Yes. If I won the lottery, I would quit tomorrow. I would, the Meg Center work for is a nonprofit, so I would give them a good donation so they could hire me. And then I would, yes, I would quit. So, sorry,
There's
no one's
something
here for
very
my job.
service-oriented about that.
Yes.
Goodbye, and here's a bunch.
Exactly, yeah, here's some money. In exchange, I'm leaving. You know? Don't never bother me. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. I don't know, I mean, maybe I would miss, I don't know, I've never been only a writer. The short period at the residency where I was like, could I sustain that 5 days a week? Like, I think so.
Yeah, me too.
But I don't know, yeah.
So, who knows when it's gonna happen or can happen.
Right, totally.
Kate? I have a really simple question, just because Alice teed it up and then we never got back to it. Let's talk about the cover, which is gorgeous.
I thought of that
That's on the
too.
cover.
We
Yeah.
were talking about.
Yeah, so this cover, it was designed by, oh gosh, what's her name? Elena something. Elena Giovanni, and she does amazing covers. She does a lot of like Valentine's covers and other covers as well. She did Isabel Allende's new book. She did.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. So anyway, this was actually my editor sent me this cover, and he was like, I really love this. I can show you.
We always say that.
Well, yeah. Well, so I was like, I wasn't skeptical, but I was a little apprehensive because I'm not kind of non-confrontational, and I was like, if I don't love this, like, I'm gonna have to say something. But I opened it and I just immediately felt like it was so vibrant and colorful, and like I don't have a design eye, so I didn't really have anything in mind, you know. I could say that I liked this cover and didn't like this cover, but I couldn't really articulate why. But I just loved how vibrant it is, especially. I love the cover of my collection, but it's very muted. Like it has very muted covers. It has like a headless woman on it. You know, there's a lot of books with headless, or for a period anyway, there were a lot of books with headless women on them. Just like the head's cut off for some reason. Like I don't know why, but like. So anyway, so like I just loved that it was. And again, I did really like my story collection cover, but this felt like very like different. And I really appreciated that.
It's like something you just want to have on your coffee
I
table.
feel like it's a little in your face.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, there's many more questions, but I think it's time. Yes, Kathy, here comes Kathy.
Thank you, everyone. We have some more up at the counter if you want to pick one up. But she'll be right here. And Alice, we have some of her books here as well. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.